All right, welcome back to Amplify Your Impact. This is a show for entrepreneurs out to change the world with their purpose-driven businesses while increasing their wealth and balancing their personal health along the way. Warning, real life entrepreneurship is raw and so is the show. We record live, unedited and unfiltered. So activate your mula bandha and let's go. I'm Josh Biro. Today's guest is someone that you need to know because longtime friend of mine, but also longtime yoga studio owner, mother of how many? Two?
Two.
Yep. And powerhouse female entrepreneur, owner of Orange Lotus Yoga Studio, Miss Kristin Sapp. Thanks for jumping on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I just want to kick right into it. I feel like a huge part of why I'm so excited about our conversation today, Kristin, is that you represent an entrepreneur that I don't feel like the general TikTok, Reels, online, this is what an entrepreneur looks like, is represented very well, when in reality, there are a lot of you. So, female, own a business that is service based, sort of impact driven, mom, wife, whatever.
Yeah.
I know a lot of that person. But, we go online and we see Joe Schmo floating in a pool talking about sales or something like that.
Yeah.
So their conversation often falls short of what the reality is, I think, for business owners more similar to yourself. So from that little bit of setup, what's the origin story here? Like, how did you end up becoming a yoga studio owner? How did you decide I'm going to own my own business amidst all of this and take that on as an endeavor?
Sort of, it just happened. It wasn't like a preconceived thing. I went and took a yoga class with my mom. I felt really good after that yoga class. And at the time had two kids who were young in school, had a job that actually worked for my life in terms of flexibility and time management, but I hated it. So like I did it because it worked with having a family, and having a family was the priority at that time. But if you're going to spend time away from your kids and away from your family to make money, like I better like it, at least like it, And I didn't like it. So I kind of felt like, oh, I have this great life. But as I started, well, I took that yoga class and went back three more times that week and then just kept going. And as you know, the more you practice, the more you sort of hear yourself and see yourself, and this message of, if I'm going to be away, it better be something I like, was coming through loud and clear. And really sort of instantly it was, I think I'm going to be a yoga teacher, and I think I'm going to open a studio. Like those thoughts came at the same time. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just not just, but I'm going to be a yoga teacher for a while, and then maybe this next thought will come. It was all of it at once. So within 6 months, I went to teacher training and started to try to figure out how to open a yoga studio, because I wanted to like what I did, and yoga made me feel good. And I thought, okay, well, like, if this is what it's doing for me in this short amount of time, I want to do that with as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I relate to this element of the story a lot too, because I had gone to a teacher training, but wasn't teaching yoga at all. And long story short, went to went to the Bikram teacher training that you're referring to too.
Yeah.
With that in mind, like I'm going to open a studio. Like that
Yeah.
was part of the vision altogether. So talk to me a little bit about that element of it. Is something I'm kind of curious about, and this is more yoga world specific, but I think it probably translates to other businesses out there too. Was there no, I'm making the assumption reading between the lines, like why was there no or thought of, oh, well, I'll just teach yoga and make money as a yoga teacher and then see about it? Like, why was it like right away, I'm going to teach and then like own a studio? Like, why was that the path?
The studio that I went to for my first class, I remember being in that space, and it was just like a good feeling space. The job I had at the time, I was in an office, in like a cubicle with people who at the time were much older than me, super unhealthy. It just like, it didn't have a good vibe at all where I was working. And I felt this energy in this space and I was just immediately drawn to it. And then, like I said, I just felt so good doing the yoga that I was like, okay, this, I knew I didn't like my current job. I don't know. Literally, it was this like, okay, this is now where my attention is going, because I really had never thought much about what I wanted to do for work. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I got out of school. I knew I wanted a family. I had this job offer to do sales, which was traveling around great. And then I had two babies and was like, well, I can't do that. So I'll just take whatever job I take. But I wasn't really thinking about working. This seemed like something that I could make happen. I mean, it was way more difficult than I thought it was going to be, but it felt like something I could make happen. Although I think honestly, like, okay, I'm going to go to teacher training and open a studio. I'm glad I didn't know all the details ahead of time, or I might have been too overwhelmed to do it. Same thing with opening a studio. I'm kind of, I didn't know all the details and just did it because then I had to make it work.
Yeah.
I was already in
Yes,
it.
that ignorance is bliss advantage, you know?
Yeah, at least to start.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a point somewhere in an entrepreneurial journey where you can't have your head in the sand either. Like you got to get smart about it. But
Correct.
I think back to a few things I've done throughout my life too, related to business and otherwise, where I'm like, yeah, like I made it through that because I had no other choice. But now knowing what I know, I would never do it again. I would never choose to go and do this, you know. Um,
Right.
sort of the nature of that question, like what fascinates me is that inspiration that you're talking about. That like this is just pops. What is that? Serendipity, the universe, the path presents itself, whatever. Like without getting too woo on the whole thing. That's fascinating to me because I would say that that's something that I see in myself and other people that I talk with as a common thread for like how did you build this thing or how did you make this decision? And I have a question there in a second too. I don't know. I just did. Like,
Yeah, it's almost like it's made for you. It's really weird because
hmm,
I was the type of person, I'm evolving a bit from this, but I really always wanted to do the right thing. Like I didn't know what I really wanted to do, but I wanted to do the right thing. So I was kind of constantly feeling it out. Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? Am I making these people happy? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? And this particular thing was like, no, I'm going to do this. And you know the teacher training that I
hmm,
went to. I had a kindergartner and a third grader, and I left for 9 weeks. So people thought I was nuts. They're like, what
yeah,
are you doing? Like, you're the mom. And I was like, I know, but I kind of feel like I just have to do this. So it was this like thing that I can't really describe because in the past, all of those people chirping about how are you leaving your kids, sort of implying without saying, or I took it as implying without saying, like, that's kind of a shitty thing to do as a mom. Um, I didn't let it stop me that time.
yeah.
And in the past, I feel like I would have probably. So I can't explain what
Hmm.
it just like it was there and it was loud. And so like follow it.
I love that. I feel like it relates to another question I had, but we've kind of answered it, which is like, how do you make that decision? How do you be like, I'm opening a yoga studio? And I received this question in our family too when we sold everything and went traveling in an RV. People were like, how we used to get interviewed. I remember being on some TV talk show thing out of the UK. They're like, well, how did you guys make that decision to do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Like we just did.
Right.
That they were really disappointed with my answer, but it's kind of like no right way to make that decision. So
There isn't. I mean, obviously, I was married. I had two kids. I still am married, still have two kids. But so everyone there has to be conversations and there has to be, decision making as a group because this is going to
mm,
impact our life as a whole, not just me. So, of course, there's that along the way. We didn't really have the money to just go open a yoga studio. So there was that aspect of it too. Like we had to figure out a lot of stuff. So really between finishing teacher training and opening the studio was like a 3-year period
yeah,
as to kind of get it together. But that was always my end goal. Like my eyes were focused on that the whole time.
Well, and then it came to fruition, right? You stuck it out
Yeah.
long enough for that to take place. What's interesting about this, what's coming to mind for me is just, it seems to be, and I'd be curious on your thought on this. This seems to be a common occurrence where you have to make this decision first, and then will it be difficult? Like, sure, there'll be some curveball, but you figure it out. Or are there other people involved you have to have a conversation with and make a plan around, and maybe the timeline changes? Like, yeah, sure, but those are all just like speed bumps or something.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. I mean, of course things come up along the way, but I think if you want it bad enough, and maybe that's an opportunity to figure that out when those speed bumps come up. But I always did. And I always sort of believed it would work. It was that same thing, like that gut feeling of like, yes, you're on the right path, keep going. And I just trusted it. But
Yeah.
also ironically, yoga is what helped me like hear it and trust it. It's like, it's so connected, as so it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking of so many places this plays in. I mean, you could take this into having a family or whatever as well too. Like,
Yeah.
this came up for me recently. There's a couple guys I play basketball with that are younger here, and one of them asked a question to a couple of us who have kids. They were like, "Well, how do you?" My fiance is talking about kids, and we're not sure what the best time for that and whatever else, and kind of like looking for some sort of advice or whatever. I'm like, I have no advice, dude. You can't fucking. It's going to be the best thing in your life and the worst thing in your life at the same time. Like, both of those are a guarantee.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think there's anything you do to prepare for it either.
No,
You have to
no.
just decide this either is or isn't happening, and then let it play its course. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I didn't really do anything to prepare for entrepreneurship either. I just
No.
sort of jumped in and then was like, okay, let's see how it goes.
Now there's this, right? Okay, so talk to me a little bit about that, because then you come back from training. There's this 3-year timeline where you're getting together to even start the business amidst having young children and everything. So obviously there's some coming up with the money, whatever.
Yep.
Talk to me about that moment where you're like, oh, I'm a business owner now, an entrepreneur. Like, yeah, talk to me about that moment.
It didn't like the reality of having the business obviously hit. Like the day before I opened, I kept trying to push back the open date. And my mother-in-law was here because I was supposed to open. And it was the day before I opened. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even get cash out of the bank for the cash drawer. Like, how could I have forgotten that? So I was driving to the bank and just started crying. Like, I don't know that I can do this. If I can't remember to get cash from the bank for the cash drawer, how am I going to do this? But I did. And in the beginning, I really just leaned into teaching because really that was always the driving force. I want to teach people this yoga and help change their life. Like I was never like the owning a business, running a business, that wasn't the drive for me. That wasn't like why I was doing it. It didn't matter. I just figured instead of doing it for somebody else, I'm pretty sure I could do it for myself. But the main driving force was I want to teach people this yoga. I want to help people. And so that's what I leaned into really heavily at first. And at first that was fine. And then a few years in, like all these little places started popping up and other fitness centers and other yoga studios and other boutique fitness all around. And so it became more and more difficult. At first, I didn't have to do as much, essentially. And so I think there was this tipping point. I think there's been like a few tipping points for me. And I'll get to a point where I feel like, okay, I now need to make a decision. Like I can't stay on this path, or I either stop or I fix it. But staying on this path is not the option. And so like, which way do you lean? And that was in 2018 when I found you guys, through a group of people. And it wasn't so much like, well, there's a couple things when I hit that tipping point. It's like, you need help at certain points, but you don't know who to ask. Also, you need help and you don't want to ask because you're like, I started this business and I was supposed to know what I was doing. So it's like, it's a bad feeling at first to want to say, hey, I started this business, but I have no idea what I'm doing.
But
that's kind of where it was, like I knew basics, but I really didn't know what I needed to do next to help myself grow. So once I like got past myself and had the ability to say, okay, I'm going to find groups of people. And there were a couple groups that I found, like just yoga studio owners in general, coaching, things like that. Put that together and then you feel supported and part of something. That's when it was like, okay, now I can keep going. Because for a minute there, it was just like, I don't know how this is going to go. And I definitely still had that vision of wanting to help people, wanting to change people's lives. It's just like, how can I actually keep doing it?
What I'm hearing is like there's this learning as you go elements to it as well.
Totally.
Backing up one of the things we were kind of just saying, both of us, is like this being ready for something. Yeah. Sense of it, like, oh, I'm opening this the day before. No, I didn't even remember the cash. Like, am I ready to do this? But I feel like that you get stuck in the perpetual, I'm never entirely ready.
Totally. It's like you just have to jump in. It's like I said, if I had known all the things, I would have paralyzed myself. Like,
right.
Because there's so many things. So you tackle the first one and then you add another and another and another. But eventually in the learning as I go by myself, I ran that course, and then it was like, okay, I've learned things I can learn by doing. Now I need extra support.
Something else there too.
Yeah.
How do you come to that realization? Maybe not even necessarily the extra support from somewhere external, but the way you're describing, like, okay, I've made it this far on this path and now I can't keep going on this path. I feel like I've experienced that personally, but I feel like entrepreneurs in general, that's a standard thing that's going to happen. Like, you're going to just get to this dead end.
Yes.
Where something has to shift or whatever.
I don't know.
How do you realize you're there? Like, make the decision of which direction to go at that point.
I think I realize I'm there when I'm doing everything I can and it's no longer having an impact in any way. Like, it's not moving the needle. It's like being on a hamster wheel. It's like I'm doing it's no longer moving the needle even a little bit. So like there has to be something additional added in. But if you don't know what that is, and I didn't at the time, it's really scary. I knew I didn't want to stop. But I wasn't quite sure where to go. So I think that's when you have to look for people who have done it and start asking for help, because I feel like that's a like I said, as an entrepreneur, you feel like, okay, I put everything on the line, like my family helped me open up this business and now it's going. Now what? I'm going to say I've hit a point where I don't know what I'm doing. Like it feels crazy to say it out loud, but of course that would happen if you're actually growing and trying to change and evolve, right? I mean, so I think when I hit that point, when I feel like I'm doing all that I can do and nothing's happening, then I know, okay, it's time for the next level, whatever that is.
Do you feel like business owners and entrepreneurs, like, is this where they get stuck? They get to this place where they can't go further and then they don't ask for help, or they don't go look for something more education, or they don't.
I mean, my personal perspective, yeah. Because it feels like you should have known what you were doing. So somehow did you, like, I don't know, think you were smarter than you are, or and that's not it, but that's the feeling. Like that's the best way I can articulate the feeling of like,
Yeah.
because I've even sat down with other studio owners at different times in my studio's evolution, and even when things are really hard, unless you're in a really safe group, it's very difficult to say things are hard. Because like you don't want to be the one who like, because you're like, are things hard for you or are they easy? Because they look from the outside, it looks easy. It looks easy to everybody. It looks like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, they've got this business and they teach some yoga and it's so great. I mean, honestly, that's kind of what I thought when I was at that first studio. Like, this is amazing. Like they teach yoga, she's hanging out with the people after the class and we're all talking and like everyone's happy and it's going to be so great. And then it's like, oh my gosh, wait, I don't even know what a KPI is, like, let alone I have to do it every month. It's like, but but then you get a handle on the KPIs and you're like, well, that's pretty awesome. But until you do, I don't know, it feels like you should have known something that you don't know. I don't know. I think it's what
Yeah.
held up for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like an ego part of it, not consciously, but just the ego of the human
Totally.
condition of
Totally.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking about businesses that I not only have worked with, but even outside of it, just seen, or even ones that I know, like in where I live here in Mexico too, where it's just like the same old daily routine of everything. And if you're happy with that, just go through the motions and you make a little bit of money or whatever, cool. But it's the ones that clearly aren't.
Yeah.
Like they're that hamster wheel, like you were saying. They're really like hustling, trying to do something more and not going anywhere. But then also, if you ask them, they know everything about everything
Yeah. And they're
with their
doing great.
business, and they're
Yeah.
doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if somebody
Hmm.
asked me, that's what I would have said, because that's what I
Right.
want deep down. Like I want this to be going great. I want this to be this thing. Um, so it's a hard thing to reconcile. But yeah, I did hit that point then. I hit that point with advertising, like I hadn't been advertising. And I hit a point where like, okay, like I need to bring new people in. I'm not sure I have the money to advertise. And it was that tipping point. Well, like we got to try because not trying
Right.
isn't going to do anything. So I've hit these little points along the way and I've always bet on them and they've always worked. But that goes back to like just trusting intuitively too and trusting the support around me, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, one of the themes that we talk about on this podcast all the time is the idea of you can't lose in entrepreneurship if you're taking forward action. You either win or you learn something, in which case you win. I think advertising is such a great analogy for that.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to me a little bit about some of these like micro decisions. They're not that micro feeling, I know, but like advertising, you just made me think as the example. The bigger decision, should I open a studio, and just the I don't know, I want to part of it. Okay. But I think once you're operating in your business, it gets even more hard because then you're like, I didn't pay myself anything last month, or I only paid myself 5 grand and I need 10 to live or whatever.
Yeah.
How am I going to go spend $1,000 on advertising? Do you
Yeah.
have, how do you go through that decision making in those moments?
Well, in those moments, it was the hamster wheel. It's like I'm doing everything else that I think I can do at that moment. And again, something needs to move the needle. So am I going to do nothing, which doesn't seem smart, or at least try, you know,
Hmm.
at least try. And and so I knew that that was something that's important, obviously, in a business. But I think again, when you're new to owning a business, you're like, "Uh, money's tight all the time. Like, how do I spend extra on advertising, which feels so heavy? I mean, now that I do, I'm like, how could you not? But at the moment of breaking over that edge, it
Yeah.
just is so scary because it feels like I don't know if it's going to work. I mean, and it does have to be correct for your business. It should be, targeted and aimed correctly so that it will probably work. And it was for us. So yeah, I think I just hit the point where I get sick and tired of being stuck. And so I'm like, okay, and how long can I stay right where I am? I need
Right.
something to happen.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, you know me a little bit, so you probably know I wait longer than some. Not like a
Well,
super
I
fast
wouldn't say that
decision maker.
necessarily.
I'm not always a super fast decision maker, but I sort of intuitively know, and I can't explain how, like when that moment is, like, okay, Kristin, like you can't like put this off anymore. Just like shit or get off the pot, basically. Like you gotta do
Yeah.
something. And so that's when I do it.
Well, and that's something I would applaud and say what makes you powerful as an entrepreneur. A lot of people don't. That's the truth that like I feel like isn't said out loud. Everyone knows it to be true maybe, but it's not admitted.
Yeah.
There is this entrepreneur situation typically in small business where you get to this place where you should do something and they just don't. They just don't do anything.
Yeah.
Uh,
It can be scary,
well, yeah.
really scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've kind of always looked at it like if I do nothing, I don't know, like I'll just be really mad at myself, because I
Mm,
won't know if it would have worked or not. Like if I at least try and it doesn't work, okay, I tried. But if I do
right.
nothing, like that's going to feel really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good. I like that analogy too. The whole like the regret isn't really the regret will only ever come from having not done anything.
Correct. Yeah.
If I think back in any elements of business that I've been involved in, I can't think of a single decision I've made where there's any level of regret associated with doing something. It would only be like I didn't do this thing, or I should have taken advantage of that.
Yeah.
Even that's minor, but um, back me up for a second. So, yoga studio, there's still this narrative. Yoga studios are a good example of like yoga is one thing, business is a separate thing. If you're an entrepreneur, this idea of ethical entrepreneurship would be a word that we might use. Business as a leadership. Talk to me a little bit about that because a lot of what you're talking about, these are business associated decisions.
Yes.
I still feel like there's a pretty, and this is long winded, there's a two-part thing here. Like, there's still this anti business narrative in a lot of service and sort of purpose driven businesses where it's like, you were saying I want to help people, I want to give them this yoga, but then like my business has to work. But that people don't connect those two things, I think, very often. The second part is especially in like the ethical service wellness industry, there's a lot of this really anti-corporate and then by extension anti-business conversation where it's like karmically bad to even try to make money or something. I don't know what exactly that is. Have you toiled with that yourself? Is that a conversation that you see in the industry? How do
It's,
you reconcile business with the product itself?
yeah, I think that it's sort of this narrative, like you said, that's out there. So I certainly was aware of it. When you open a yoga studio, it's almost like, okay, I don't want to do too well, but I want to do well. And then I think you start working, or I started working, and I was like, I am working a lot and all the time. And people appreciate what they're coming here for. So I think that if I don't stay open, if I can't pay my bills, if I can't pay myself because I need a job, then it goes away. And this whole community of people that we've brought together who really love coming here then have nothing.
Mm,
So I do think that there was a moment of like self-consciousness or thought around it. Um, but I don't at this point feel feel bad about it. I think, I'm providing a really good service. I try to pay my teachers well. I try to pay my other staff well. I think that we're doing a really good thing for the community, for the world, quite frankly. Um, and so I think we deserve to be able to make a living doing that. So I've sort of come around on that pretty quickly. I always knew I needed to make money doing it. And that was very hard in the beginning. Very, it's like any new business. You're paying off loans and you're doing all these things. So it's hard to make money. But I feel like I know what I put into it. I know what my staff puts into it. So I no longer have any hangups about it.
Yeah, you gotta just get over it.
I
really
mean,
quick.
yeah, but I did have to get over it. But I did because there's a lot of businesses out there that don't do the good we're doing, and I know we are doing good, and they make a ton of money. So I'm like, I think we're fine,
I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting thing that the yoga world tends to amplify is this thought around if I'm doing something that's positive for the world and helping people, that there's some associated martyrdom with it or something like that, like that it shouldn't be associated with making money, and that it's never made sense to me. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you've said this, like money is energy, and there is an exchange of energy that happens when someone comes to your business for a service that they appreciate and like. And let's face it, I mean, you could do yoga for free online, but if you value going to this place that has to pay the bills and keep the lights on and make sure there's paper towels to dry your hands after you wash your hands and does laundry and all the things and keep heat on, it has to operate for that to happen.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think we've hit a nice balance of being able to provide what we want to provide. And it feels really good.
Do you believe, in your opinion, that this is a necessity of business success? It's like reconciliation between the service or product that you're offering, if it's something that's sort of like this heart led, make the world better, and successful business.
Do I think one is required for the other? Is that what you just asked?
Yeah. Well, the other way to word it, it's kind of a tricky question to word, but I was just thinking, like, is it possible for someone to be like, I don't believe in business. I don't want to pay attention to the business. I'm not going to work on the business, but I'm just going to do this thing that's so good for the world and then really succeed?
No, I don't think that's possible. I mean, no, I don't think it's possible. Just based on my own journey and all I've learned
Hmm.
about running a business and all that needs to be done. Like there's just a lot that needs to be done
Yeah.
and that I as an owner need to be aware of in order for us to stay moving in a positive direction. I think you can for sure go spread um knowledge or goodwill or whatever kindness in whatever form you want to spread, but to have that just magically turn into a business, I don't know how that would happen. I don't know.
Yeah. Hmm.
Do you think?
How do you,
What are your thoughts on
no, yeah, no, I don't. I think small businesses are a good example, but entrepreneurs and businesses are core drivers of social transformation. I think the business is the vehicle.
Yeah.
I haven't seen personally, haven't ever seen anyone come up with a better model. Like once something becomes a business, then it creates a system to take care of itself to be able to distribute what you're trying to do.
Yes.
I think that businesses can lose sight of that though too. You can get, it's like, what's the outcome you're trying to achieve? If your attachment, which should you even have any attachment, but if your core goal is just to make money only, that changes your behavior inside the business. If your
Totally.
core goal is to serve people your product and then money is a wealth accumulation is as a result of that, great.
Yeah. Well, that's why the first time you asked it, I don't know what tripped me up, but I was going to say you need both. Like, because you do need both. Like you
Yeah.
have to have the business, but you also have to have that passion, or I think it becomes a very corporate feeling entity,
Mm.
which is like to me a very kind of cold feeling, you know?
Yeah.
And that's definitely not what I'm trying to provide.
So how do you keep that? Because how many years has it been open now?
Since 2011, so 14.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've tripled the average for, and obviously have gone way beyond survival and thriving as well. How do you keep this origin belief of the product and the positive service? How do you keep that in balance as you are focusing on the business growth side of things? Like keep that sort of anchor there.
Well, for me, I like to have a personal presence there, but the real answer is that I have help. And
Mm,
so it allows me the space to still have a presence there without just everything accumulating on my plate to where I'm just buried and away. So it that was another tipping point that it took me a while to get to was the staff. Obviously, I've always had teachers who have worked, and now we have what I call studio assistants who are, I mean, invaluable. And just the things that I've been able to offload allow me, like I said, the space to stand at the desk at sign in and say hi to everybody that's coming in instead of being buried under a stack of things on my desk.
mm.
So that disbursement of work has been really, really helpful. And also it was difficult for me to let go of some of those things, but it's been so key because I'll say, okay, this needs to get done. And if I'm doing something, there's all this emotion that goes with it. And if somebody else is doing it, it's just like they just get it done. And so things
Like it
get
just
done a
happens.
lot faster, because like I know what I want to do, but then halfway through I'm not like, oh, does this sound to this or does this sound to that? And go back and it goes out from a really what's the word I'm looking for? Neutral point of view.
Yeah.
Instead of like all my stuff attached to it. So that's been really good. And then it allows me to be how I like to be. Like I like to be there interacting with students. I like to be saying hi, saying goodbye when they come in and out. I mean, I'm obviously at my desk too, but that has been huge in keeping that balance.
I feel like a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs get themselves caught by not doing what you're describing. And then you get so bogged down in all the schlag of shit you've got to do that then whatever initial belief or enthusiasm you had, like that wanes real fast. If you're not making money and you're working really hard, it doesn't matter how much you love your product right now, you're not going to love it.
Oh, totally. And I just had a thought when you said that. Oh, I think it went back to the tipping point because I think people don't get help not just because it's like, oh my gosh, I know how I'm doing all this and I like how I do it, but also now I have to pay another person to do it. And so like
Mm,
there's this twofold process of like, okay, can I afford to hire somebody else? Or eventually it becomes, can I afford not to really? But also like, what am I willing to offload? And then like really stand back and offload, not like
right.
offload, but still have your hand half in it, like
Micromanage the whole thing. Right. You create a new version of the same job for yourself.
right, right. So I think I finally hit that point where I let go sort of reluctantly. And now, I mean, I have like the best help. And it's like, okay, that's what you're taking care of. This is what I'm taking care of. And it just makes things run so much smoother. And no
So,
one is so overwhelmed that they're no longer happy to be there.
right. Well, yourself included by the sounds of it.
Right.
How did you do that though? Like that decision making moment, and maybe it's not a moment, and maybe it's just necessity, but I find it fascinating, like the psychology that must be behind this. Of I need help, but I don't think I can afford it. But how can I afford not to? But then I'm going to micromanage the whole thing. To here's this person, I give them this thing, they do it, and I'm sort of the detached part of it, I suppose.
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
how do you do that?
Well, it's a process. It was not like, oh, you're hired, here you go. It's like, um, found a person who, like, within the studio was teaching, wanted more hours. She's fantastic. And it was an evolution of doing more and more and more, to the point where then we finally like structured it. Like, okay, these are the things that you are taking care of. And it's just working great. It doesn't happen like that, because obviously there's training and that person becoming part of the community. But like now at this point, you know, I have 3 studio assistants. They're all at the desk all the time. So like they're just as much an anchor in that business as I am, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. People coming in and out know them like they know me. They know they can go to them with any question. They can get whatever done they need done. I mean, it's really great. It's really
What
great.
would you what would you say to a business owner that is at that moment where it's kind of a growing pain moment, where like you're going to have to let go of the control over some things in order to be able to give it to someone else, whether you can afford hiring the person or whatever aside. It's like you're going to have to let go of the reins on a few things, give it to somebody else. What would you say to someone who's struggling with that?
Well, if you have the right person, you just have to trust it.
Mm.
I think it's having the right person, or the right people. Like I said, I have more than one person helping me at this point. But when you have the right people, and that's where it's like a progression. I had to work with them to know, like, okay, we're at this point, and now it's like, okay, here you go. I trust that this is going to get done, and our communication is good enough that it's going to get done. At first, there is a little bit of like, did you do it? Can I see it? Like, there has to be a little back and forth at first. But also, the giving up the control is super scary, because you're like, I've been holding this thing together by myself for however many years. It it it's not even that you don't want to, it's like you're not even sure how to let go of
Mm.
any of it, because you've just been doing it. But once you make that clear, this is what I'm not going to do anymore, and I'd like you to do this. Oh my gosh, it's like night and day. And
Hmm.
um I was saying that to somebody recently, like, that I used to do all of that. Even myself, I'm like, how I didn't, you can't do all of it well. Simply, it's all getting done.
Right.
Everything's getting done better, because I'm not trying to do it all.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
really.
it's another one of those ego things where you think as the owner, you're like, well, I'm the best at this.
Yeah,
But not if you're the best at the 50 things that have to happen, because then you're not doing your best at any one of those things.
right.
I I like what you're saying. I'm going to paraphrase here, see if I'm getting this right. It's a little bit of this like higher slow mentality of people will grow into the position and that trust will get there. Would you say that that's been your successful technique, or is there something else that you're looking for when it comes to finding the right person?
Well, for me, that is how it has worked, and I've hired from within either our teaching staff or our community in general. And
Hmm.
so I had a little bit of a relationship with each person already, very surface at first, but it was an in. And I like that they already knew our community, because I'm always surprised by that. I get quite a few job applications from people who have never stepped foot inside my studio. And I mean, usually I say back, come take a class, like, see if you even like it here,
Yeah.
you know? But so we had rapport, each person. And yeah, we've started slow. And then as I see fit, it's like, here, take this on, take this on. And it's been really great. And having that relationship, I think, is great both ways. It's great for me, but I think it's good for them too, because they really have an understanding of each thing along the way, which is helpful.
It's a little unique in the type of business that you're in, because I would even coach towards this, that like very likely a good person to work with is already in your network, right? You've already met them, or they're a direct it's not a sixth degree of separation. It's one. It's like your long-term member's got a niece who moved back who loves yoga and whatever. Like, but I was just thinking as you were describing that, that is a bit unique because there's a lot of other businesses where like, I don't know, you'd have never been in the business or met anyone, or
Right.
getting hired is how you discover what's kind of uh, normal in the business.
Well, I think that goes back to the personal nature of it, right? I mean, it
Hmm.
it is so personal that I can't imagine working with somebody that I don't have a relationship with.
Right.
I don't know. But that's just sort of the nature
Right.
of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's very human centric that way.
Yeah.
What do you think about this AI stuff? No,
Um,
because we're on the subject.
yeah, I was like, wow, okay. I mean, I like it. I use it a little bit and I find it helpful.
Yeah.
I find
That
it like, intimidating and maybe a little scary long term, but like I do use it. I mean, ChatGPT is pretty great.
yeah. The nature of the question is has to do with what we just said, like the human to human nature of your business, that even the people that work there, like you have a relationship with them beyond, not like a major relationship. You have to be best pals or something, but like it's a little different than just Jim, who happens to also work at the place I work at. Like we
Totally.
know each other a little bit in the nature of a studio.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're all behind this main, mission and vision and goal. And they wouldn't be at the studio if they weren't behind it. Like that obviously wouldn't be a good fit. So like, the fact that they're already there, they're already buying into that vibe and that mission. So then to bring them around to the other side, it just sort of amplifies it for them.
yes. And so this AI part of it, it's like we're at the place now already where just getting tasks completed is no longer the valuable thing. Like we can get a robot to do a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
but what kind of relationship is that? Like just internally slash the nature of your business, does it have the nuance that's necessary?
Right. I mean, I like all that personal feel, you know?
Yeah.
So even when I'm working, I like having somebody there. Like if I'm working and somebody else is there working, I like that. I like that
Yeah.
collaboration.
Yeah. It almost feels like that's going to become more valuable.
Hmm.
I mean, I think in some ways it already has, but I
Yeah,
feel like that's part of the direction we're heading.
yeah,
Um, Team building and vision, you know, you've sort of described a bit of an evolution of the studio that you've gone through. And I'm interpreting some of what you've described as like there's been a change in vision. Like when you get to these sort of like endpoints, you're like, hey, something's got to shift. Also, the vision's got to change a little bit. And
yeah,
then your team has been a result of that, that like you've had to build up a team.
yeah.
Talk to me about, yeah, expanding the business and expanding the studio beyond the original vision. Do you feel, are you still in the original vision? I guess is the first question. Like, did you always think like, yep, I'm going to be here 15 years, 14 years and
I never
have
had
front
like
desk people or whatever? Or, yeah.
I never had an end in sight, that's for sure. Um, I don't think I envisioned having a staff like I have right now. I envisioned the only thing I knew prior to having my own studio, which was a studio that had an owner and then the teachers were there. I mean, like a typical Bikram studio in the day, and the teacher was at the desk before and after class, and that's how it went. And I loved that. And that's what I had for a really long time. We just hit a point where there was just more to be done. And I think, back in the day in those like early 2000s, that was plenty to have because there weren't a ton of
Mm.
boutique fitness studios around. It was like if you had this cool yoga studio, people were going to come. They didn't expect a lot. I mean, boutique fitness has gotten much more bougie, for lack of a
It's,
better word.
Yeah, it's fancy now. Yeah.
So, like if we have 42 people leaving a class and 42 people coming in, and a teacher is supposed to teach, like that's way too much. We need additional staff. And it's been amazing and it's awesome. But no, I hadn't originally envisioned that. And now, we are at a point where it's like, how do I continue to grow and increase impact? And I don't know. I mean, we could be coming to another tipping point soon. I'll let you know.
Tell you when I get there.
Yeah.
Do you have a vision, like a bigger vision for the business now? Like, are we going 14 more years, or like, is there an end
I don't have an end.
target, or?
I don't have an end target yet. No, I feel like I'll know when that's approaching, but
Mm,
it's definitely not. I still really enjoy it. I still really enjoy teaching, and I'm enjoying like having the business. It doesn't feel so like the part that I don't like. Like for a while there was like the part that I liked and the part that I really didn't like. I'm more confident in the part that I used to not like, so I like it more than I used to. But I don't want to stop anytime soon. I love being there. My kids are now grown and not at home, so like I have more time. There's a shift. When I first started, my kids were younger. It was really difficult to try to balance everything. Like no matter where I was, I felt like I should be somewhere else. If I was
mm.
like I should be at work, and if I was at work, I felt like I should be at home. And there was this constant tug. And so I'm much more focused on the studio in the past 4 or 5 years. Um, and that's I like it. I'm enjoying it. So I don't have an end game yet. I don't know.
I want to change gears to talk about the sort of work-life balance part, but the vision, just to sort of conclude that thought with what you're saying, I feel like there's a push in modern entrepreneurship to have this end goal, to be like, I have to build to this place so that it's like this, so I can sell it, or so that I get it funded, or so that whatever. But I think back about a couple of the early businesses that I had jobs in, or even a business my parents had. We're talking like 30, 40-year-old businesses. Like the lady who owned the wine shop that was actually near my yoga studio, or my last yoga studio, just it was like a second generation wine shop store, as funny as that sounds.
Yeah.
They had no vision for ever ending. You just owned the business forever.
Yeah.
And so I think that the short-sighted goal nature of a lot of entrepreneurship, I'm going to build this for 2 years and then like sell it or something, that changes your behavior, changes the timeline at which you're doing things.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's necessarily a positive thing. As much as having a target maybe is good. It's
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, I don't know, I wouldn't want to start thinking that way. I think that there are important things that you and I have talked about, like you need your ducks in a row. God forbid something happen and you have to do something. You need to have good, um, a finger on the pulse in all ways. It would definitely change how I operated things or how
mm,
I behaved there. And yeah, I don't know. I don't want it. So I want
yeah.
to keep going. So that's just where I am.
Saying that, it's like almost a cliche question because everyone asks about it, but it's real, and I think myself, like
Yeah.
mommy is special as much as daddy is also special in his own way.
Yeah.
When they're young, mommy's mommy. Like you can't compete with that.
Right.
It's actually very frustrating as the dad. Unique uh turmoil internally, I think. Like I experienced it too to some extent, but
Totally.
not nearly as much as my wife would have.
Totally. Um, Yeah, I mean, it was exactly like I said, everywhere I was, I felt like I should be somewhere else. And I also felt like I was the last line of defense everywhere. So,
Hmm.
like, no matter what, at the end, it was going to be up to me to figure it out, whether it was at home with the kids or at work. So, like, obviously, I have a really great husband and super supportive, but when you it is a lot of pressure. And it's a lot of what ifs too, because you're constantly just like you are with kids on guard, like, okay, this is probably all going to go well, but what if? Like we need to just have a little idea what's going to happen if something goes wrong. Same thing at the studio. I mean, even
Yeah.
still, I go to sleep at night and I put my phone on sleep. The only people who can get through on my phone are my kids and my teachers. You know, you are sort of still, I am still the last line of defense everywhere. But I've created more support systems along the way. Balance, I don't know that there's ever balance. I think it ebbs and flows one to the other. When they were younger, I definitely, left work and went to a track meet and went to whatever. Like I just did. Now, like I said, they've been in school and are now out of school. And so my time now it's more focused there. And even though we're empty nesters and Trey and I, love to do things, our schedule is determined a lot of times by the studio. Like, oh, I've got a
Right.
retreat for that week. We can't go on vacation. Or I've got this planned and we can't do that. And not to say that there aren't times where it's because I'm the owner, it's super open. It's just it's just interesting how it happens. One is constantly always dictating toward the other. I don't know that I've ever found great balance, but and then try to counterbalance.
Yeah.
The best I've done so far.
I like that. I don't know. As you were saying it, what popped into my head was just even the nature of that question is maybe off. Like why, and this is a common question, and that's why I made the point that it's like a cliche question to ask. In my experience, I have to say that's true too. I'm all the way here, all the way, not all the way, but like
Yeah.
that pendulum is a good analogy. I'm more on one side or the other temporarily based off of necessity or feeling or whatever in the moment. There's never in a perfect balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when something requires your
Hmm.
attention, you're there. Like I'm
Yeah.
never like half here and half. I don't know. It's not just how it works for me. I will say like in daily life there is a little more balance because I have a great team in place. Like when I leave at the end of the day, I don't sit at home and worry. If I'm on vacation, I don't sit there and worry that something's going to go wrong. I mean, they'll call me if they need me, but I do have complete confidence in them. So when I disconnect, I disconnect, which is nice.
Did I ever tell you my vacuum on vacation story? One time I went on vacation, took the whole family. We went to Nicaragua. We were staying in this little tiny place. It was very remote, so there was no, I couldn't even check email, and cell phone service was not even. Plus, Canadian cell phone internet. This was years ago, so like it was impossible. So once every like 3 days, I would check email, and I got an email from our manager being like, "The vacuum broke." I remember one thinking like, if that's the worst thing that's happened, like we're fine. But also, and what are you gonna do about it? And that was it. And like you couldn't talk to me for another week. So I got a response that was equally as passive aggressive. It was just like dealt with. That was it. Like you don't need to contact me about a broken vacuum. Like you have the
Yeah.
credit card, figure it out.
Go get one.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that you know what you know and you're who you are now, like what would you tell you back then with little kids and trying to balance, quote unquote, this whole thing? Is there
Yeah,
advice that you would give?
I think I would tell myself to go like easier on myself. Like you do the best you can in both places and that it's going to be okay. You know, like you're not gonna, I didn't wreck my kids by going to teacher training for 9 weeks. In fact, I think the opposite. I think there was a lot of lessons for them along the way of like, hey,
Mm.
if one of us in this family wants to do something, the rest will like support and back you up and figure out how to get you there. And my kids saw that happen with, you know, like my mom, my husband's mom, everybody that helped while I was gone. Um, and then they saw it with the studio too, you know, like my husband's there fixing stuff all the time, like all the time. He's, you know, we're building something, they're there. So I think it's easy to be really hard on yourself and think you're not doing a good enough job in either place. But I think ultimately you are, is what I would like to tell myself and hopefully believe.
Well, and what, as you were saying that, I was thinking like that's really quite brilliant and objectively people know this to be true, but it's not registered emotionally. This idea of like, what are you teaching your family, but especially your kids? Like they get to watch you.
Yeah.
I'm reading a really interesting book right now that isn't specifically on parenting, it's using that example quite a bit. And that's one of the major points. So like, kids don't remember. You don't teach your kids something; they copy you.
Yeah.
You want to teach them something, show them something,
Yeah.
especially
Like,
when they're much younger. So yeah, what are you showing? Like to your point, what are you showing them about your larger family unit and what it looks like to be strong as an entrepreneur? Like that's major life skill stuff.
yeah. And to like bet on yourself, like try,
Totally.
you know, like you can do it. Might be hard. I mean, but everything's hard. Like that's not a reason not to do something. But you know, I think we get scared by that, but
Mhm.
super rewarding in the end.
There's it kind of became a little bit of an entrepreneurial trend thing online for a second. I can't even remember where it originates at this point, but it's like if you were trying to build a superhuman, what would you put them through? You're pulling the puppet strings. Like, would you make life really easy and comfortable and they just immediately get everything they want and need? Or like, would you make it kind of really hard for them? Like, who's going to come out the other side seasoned and capable of taking on whatever? And
Totally.
it's a weird thought because then you have to apply yourself to it and be like, I don't want it to be hard, but also like I can embrace hard work and difficulty because it only makes you stronger, as the saying goes.
Totally. I forget
Hmm.
what I was either reading or watching something and it was very similar to that, but they were talking about kids and kids with more friction. They called it friction. Kids who have more friction have more self-esteem, have more confidence, will try and try again. And kids who grow up without friction, who seem to have it all together, it's just because they haven't really been challenged, have a much more difficult time down the
Hmm.
road because they don't know how to figure it out to no fault of
Right.
their own, you know, but friction's good.
Then they have to learn that lesson then. Yeah. Friction's good. It's an interesting thought. I think it's an important one as an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
There are certain things as an entrepreneur that I don't think you can learn without the friction. Like you have to do it and experience it, and it's got to be kind of shitty for a second. Like that's just how it has to happen.
totally,
Hmm.
totally. But I think it's just how we evolve and get stronger. I mean, it's how it's happened. I mean, I guess those are all my tipping points were really like points of friction.
Right.
Yeah.
What is a hard lesson that you've had to learn? If you think about going through all of this, like, or what's the lesson you've had to learn the hard way, would be the other way to say it.
Hmm. The lesson I had to learn the hard way. I was thinking about like the hardest times in the business, and the hardest time was obviously COVID.
Mm.
Uh, and just realizing that when you are the owner, like you really are the last line of defense. And in that moment, and this is no like dig on anybody who is part of the studio, because that like I am so grateful and so lucky, but no one can ever really understand your input, um, sweat equity that's gone into what you have. So no one can ever really care about it the way you do.
Mm.
And so in those moments where you think it could be gone, it's really yours to save. Like it's not up to anybody else to help do it at that point. And that was just like a long, hard time.
Right. Right.
Um,
No one's coming to, it sounded almost a bit harsh, but like no one's coming to save you.
correct. And I think that's one of like life's biggest lessons, like you have to figure it out for you. And I wouldn't change that because that's helped me grow as an owner, as a business owner too. I mean, I think the other big lesson is to just ask for help when you need it, because there are people who have been through whatever it is. I mean, and that's in any realm, but again, back to like being a business owner and not wanting to say, oh, I'm struggling right now and I could use help. Um, Getting past that and asking, I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. You find somebody willing to help, you know what to do, you can do it. Like, so
Yeah.
that was another big one.
The being willing to ask for help, we've kind of talked about it quite a bit, but I feel like is it that people know they should ask for help and they, or has your experience been, then there's a reluctance to ask for the help, or is it just not even knowing that you should ask for help?
Oh, I think it's a total overwhelm. I think it's you don't know who to ask for help. Like you're not sure where to look for help.
Mm.
Originally, that was part of it too. I'm like, I mean, there wasn't another, I mean, the only other yoga studio around was the yoga studio where I used to teach. Um, I didn't feel like I was going to go there and ask for help. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know where to go to ask for help. Um, and then combined with like, I feel like I should know what I'm doing. And then I feel like asking for help makes it sound like I don't know what I'm doing, and that feels bad. And so it's just this like, like pile up of yucky feelings that you're like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. How do you, you started out today by talking about like, okay, I go to this yoga class, I feel good, I start to feel better practicing more.
Mhm.
I feel like once you add in entrepreneur on top of the list of things that you do as a human being, health goes out the window really fast for people,
Yeah.
um, physically, mentally, emotionally. So, what do you, I don't know, maybe I read this wrong, but I view you as a very healthy person.
Thank you.
How do you keep yourself healthy, like amidst all of the work and everything that you're doing?
Um, Prioritizing it. I mean, I literally schedule in my yoga classes and my fitness classes every week. So I don't schedule things during them. I take class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, every week.
Mm.
And I really try not to let anything get in the way of that. Like somebody said, well, what if you have an appointment? I'm like, I mean, I really try not to schedule appointments during those times. And then I do like, all my times at my desk around that. But I really, it's a non-negotiable for me because I don't feel well if I don't. I
Mm.
just don't. And then one habit leads to another. If you're taking hot yoga classes and hot fitness classes 5, 6 days a week, Well, you're going to drink a lot of water. You're going to eat well. You're going to sleep well because you're tired and because you know you're getting up early. It's just, it all compounds. And I try to really not let anything get in the way of that. And also like modeling that for my kids. You know, I mean, they saw that growing up. My husband's the same way. He's super fit and we both like to feel good and take care of ourselves. That's always sort of been part of our thing from the get-go. But when I started working, I definitely, first year of owning the studio, I really taught all the time. So I definitely didn't practice as much then. So as soon as I could, I reprioritized it and just kept it in there, like non-negotiable.
I think also modeling for your staff and your clients as well. I mean,
Totally.
it's sort of an ironic thing, isn't it? Yoga studios are like this, but I know a couple of Pilates instructors that recently we've had the conversation, same thing. I know a couple massage therapists where it's like I asked the question to the massage therapist, like, well, when's the last time you had a massage? If massage is so good for you, we're supposed to go every week. Like,
Yeah.
when's the last time you had a massage? They didn't answer the question because,
Yeah.
but like, it's kind of the irony of a lot of this type of business too, that once you get on the business side of it, you forget to keep
Yeah.
utilizing it, which is what got you into it in the first place.
Yeah. That
And
wasn't really an option for me. Just, I never wanted that. I don't feel as good when I don't practice. And yeah, like I want to be in there with everybody, doing all the things
right,
that I know are good for you, you know?
yeah, that's where the party is.
Yeah, totally.
um, I have to say, I think of of the of the more powerful studio owners that I know, this is one of the common threads. Like anyone who's like really doing well, really has a strong team in place, is a good leader themselves, is making real money, they also have this figured out. This like personal health, keep their practice alive part. I can't think of anyone who's like crushing it in a studio and is in that like I'm so busy I can't practice.
Yeah. I don't even know how I would do it. Because like
Right.
really for
Right.
my own mental health and just stress levels, that space to like process things. I mean, just being in a yoga class or a fitness class does so much of that for me that I'm able to tackle things faster. And I think that you and I have talked about this before. Like, I don't know. Well, I do know. If I sat at a desk for 8 hours straight, or if I sat at a desk for 4 hours, I would probably get the same amount done. I,
Hmm.
I don't think
Yeah.
that I would be twice as productive if I sat there twice as long. I would just be like totally distracted. I can't focus for that long. So I might as well do something that helps me focus and then like focus for that time and then be on to the next thing. So
Yeah.
I just work better that way in general. But I also think like when I'm in class with students and they see that, I'm then more A, accessible, but B, like connected to them. So it does foster that feeling of, you know, a locally owned small business, not this corporate place where like who knows who's teaching and who
Yeah.
knows who the owner is. Like, um,
Well, and the product itself of your yoga classes and fitness classes, which I want to talk about actually a little bit to sort of close us out. But like there's such a practice what you preach thing. One thing I've never understood,
yeah,
and I know that this is not the case in your studio at all, is the yoga teacher scenario where someone teaches 15 classes a week and then never practices in that studio. And they're like, well, I have a home practice.
right.
And I'm like, first, I don't believe you really. Like, do you really have a home? Maybe you do. I don't know. I've never, in decades of practicing yoga, I have to this day would struggle to have the discipline to have a serious home practice.
That's so funny because I just had that conversation with somebody. It was one of my teachers, and she took my class this morning, and somehow we got talking about practicing at home. And she's like, I've even come to the studio and tried to practice by myself once, and I couldn't do it. She's like, I love having people around. I was like, me too. I mean, and it
Yeah.
does. It fosters that whole experience, but it it pushes you too, which I love. But sorry, back to the teacher.
Oh no, not that's it's just a funny thing that I've noticed. But this practice what you preach thing, like how do you stand in a position of authority as the owner of business who then doesn't utilize the product that you're selling in the business? I mean, from a salesperson mentality, that's one of the first necessities of being good at sales is real, genuine, deep belief in what you're selling. And
Totally.
so if you're not even practicing your yoga class, like how can you stand in front of someone and be like, you should practice because this is good for you? That would be silly. But it
Yeah,
happens a lot.
it
It
does
happens a
happen a
lot.
lot. And I agree with you 100%. Um, I think that when I have had a teacher like that in the past, and great teacher, but also that teacher never really fully becomes part of the community either. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in a business like ours, when you have teachers who teach and practice, again, it's that rapport with the students. The students feel connected to that teacher, like, okay, like I trust you because I see you here. I now feel like I have a relationship with you. Like everything is more personal, which is what we want. Like that's why we are the studio that we are, you know? Yeah, I agree 100%.
Talk to me about your classes a little bit. The the nature of the question and where I'm fascinated is even your studio started out from this place of I practice this Bikram yoga, style of yoga. They do that training, and then I open a studio. So then, like, that's the product. So the product is defined automatically.
Yes.
Same thing in Pilates. Legree's having its moment in the sun right now. It's blowing up everywhere.
Yep.
Whatever it is, there's no product development. It's like the product just is, and the whole business forms around the product. But at some point, that shifts.
Yeah.
And so you've gone through that shift actually. And I think that that's not a common conversation where you have the original product, but you have these other products and they all sort of fit together.
Yes. And
Talk
I
to me
think,
about how did you develop the overall product for what Orange Lotus offers at this point and why?
yeah, so we did start as a Bikram yoga studio and I still I mean I love that practice. We still have I think like 13 classes a week of that on our schedule. We hit a point where again there's all these boutique fitness places popping up all around us and I was ready to offer something else. I didn't want to get rid of the Bikram yoga. I still believe in it. I still love it. Um, but I was ready to offer something else. So if I went back to my mission, which is to offer people an opportunity for personal growth through powerful classes, I had to find something that was going to fit that. I'm a hot studio, so I wanted something that fit that. And so I we added Inferno Hot Pilates, and then I ended up doing that level two, which we call Inferno Sculpt. So we now have a yoga class, a cardio class, a more strength-based class, and then we do yin yoga also. So we've got like a deep slow stretch class. So I feel like it's at a nice, well-rounded place right now where if people mix it up and take all of the classes, which I do, um, you end up kind of hitting those key points in your fitness that you want to hit and feel really amazing and only have to go to one place. Because we got that feedback for a little while, like, oh, I love coming here for yoga, but I also go here to do this class and I also go here to do this class. And it's like I have good teachers and I've got a good space. I want you to just keep, I want you here, you know? So it was a natural progression and we rebranded at that time to Orange Lotus and yeah, it's been really, really great. And it brings in more um particularly age diversity. We've got a lot more young people
Hmm.
who wouldn't maybe have come in just for the yoga and now do the yoga because they came in and now they're not afraid of it anymore. So it's been a really
Right.
cool transition. And I'm loving all the things that we have.
I think that it's cool to hear the journey of going through that, I guess, product line expansion. Like it's still in the same genre, but I would agree you have a very well-rounded set of products that you're offering.
Yeah.
And all of things personally, I love to practice too. Like I can't think of a better scenario than in a week being able to do a yin class and a 26 and 2 class and a
Yeah.
inferno class, you know.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that it seems like that was partially your progression, but also maybe a slight business necessity as well, just to expand the market that you were serving?
Totally. Yes. Yeah. So another tipping point, because really, when I first opened, my vision was for a Bikram yoga studio. I
Mm.
didn't think when I opened, oh, I'm going to add these other things. Um, but yeah, it's been a really great thing, and I have enjoyed it too. You know, I think there was a time when it's like, okay, you're doing this great thing, and it's all I'm ever going to do, and it's all I'm ever going to need, and that thing is still great. Like I really won't ever go without it, the Bikram yoga. But also now when I take like a sculpt class, I'm like, hell yeah, like I love that class. So it feels good. It feels good to add and mix it up and do different things. And I think the students feel the same way. Like they're so grateful to have options.
Yeah, I like the idea to expand the community reach and the market that you're serving, but also like that stickiness that you're insinuating too, of just now you don't need to go to other places. Of course you can, and people have memberships in multiple places, but just how do you build your business up more that way?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of, especially in boutique fitness and wellness, there have been a lot of businesses that are based off of one sole product line. And what we see is that they trend up and then they trend down. And those businesses do well for a time and then they struggle. And it's because they don't expand that market. That market itself expands and contracts. And
Yeah.
so cool to hear you done that.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I've got for today. How do people, if they're interested in Orange Lotus and you, Kristin, they want to connect? How do they how do they do that? Where do they find you?
They can go right to our website, orange-lotus.com. And they can message us. They can send an email through there. They can find us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm trying to get myself better on TikTok.
I've been
That's
seeing you on there.
that's one of the
Yeah.
things I handed off though, social media, and she's doing such a good job. So yeah, I'm learning.
I would second that. Follow Orange Lotus on TikTok. I think you guys are doing a great job as a studio. Come up on my feed all the time. Not that I'm
Awesome.
spending time on my feed, but
Yeah.
I do hear there. Yeah. Kristin, thanks so much. It's been awesome.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
watching the show. And for listeners, make sure you're hitting the subscribe button. Follow us wherever you're following us. And if you are on YouTube watching this, post your comments down below for questions. We do make sure that we pass them along and answer them in next shows. But that's it for now. Thanks so much.